creators, thanks for coming to my channel. For today's video, we're going to be making 4 no-sew hair bows. Make sure to like and subscribe as I post new videos every Tuesday and Friday. And let's go get creating. Our first step is to attach the craft foam to the felt for some added stability. Once that is achieved, you're going to want to use the pattern, which I've linked below, and trace it onto whichever side is easiest to see the markings. Although I do think it's easier to see if you mark it on the foam. Then you're going to want to cut out the pattern with either scissors or an X-Acto knife. After the cut is achieved, I always make sure that the bow looks right when you try to set it down where you're going to glue the back. And once you are happy with the placement of that, I try to smooth the felt down and then I place some hot glue. You can use other types of glue. I find for this specific project that hot glue works best. Although Gorilla Glue or E6000 will also work, they just take longer to set. Your next step is going to be using the smaller pattern that's listed below and cutting it out to use it as a pattern for another color bow to include on top of this gold bow. I like the red just because I think the color combination would go really well together, but you can basically do this with any color you want. You don't even need to use the sparkle craft foam. Just like with the other bow, you put a little bit of glue in the middle. I like hot glue, but you can use any type of glue you want. You just want to make sure at this point to have the glue be completely dry. Now you want to make sure that the bows sit properly on top of each other. Cut out approximately a 1/2 inch piece of craft foam, wrap it around the bow, and it's all set. For our next bow, it's basically all of the same steps. So you're going to want to put some craft foam on top of some felt, with the exception of for this one, the felt is going to be the outside of the bow instead of the inside of the bow. So the pattern is still the same. You can get it from down below. You're going to want to trace it out onto the craft foam or the felt, whichever side is easier. Just make sure if you do it on the side that's showing, you're going to make sure that you cut on the inside of the line. Now you're going to want to put some hot glue in the middle of your bow and make sure that it sits down properly, just like you did in the previous bow. If you end up using hot glue and have a little bit of spillage on the sides, I found that the metal silhouette weeding tool works really well to get it off without causing any issues with the bow itself. Once your bottom bow is finished, just like the previous bow, you're going to want to cut and trace out the smaller bow. I had to clean up the edge a little bit because you could see my original trace line, and then I put the glue and attached it together. I had to use the silhouette weeding tool again to clean up a little bit of glue, and then made sure that the glue was set. Once you're satisfied with how the glue is set, you want to check that they sit properly, add some glue, and attach them together. After your bows are connected, you're going to want to cut out about a 1/2 inch piece of felt. Because the outside of this bow is felt and not the craft foam, you're going to want to make sure that the middle piece is also felt. And because it's felt, it doesn't have the sticky side that the craft foam has, so you're going to have to glue both sides of it. For the next step, you're going to be adding the tails on the bottom of the bow. I personally didn't put a template at the bottom because every bow I make has a different length and width based on what style I'm trying to go with. So for this one, I made a rectangle that is about a 1/2 inch wide by 2 inches long, and then I cut a triangle out of it, and I made that in the lighter blue. Once I got the lighter blue all set, I made a white ribbon that was a little bit smaller, so it has the two-tone duality on it. Once I have both of the ribbons all set about where I want them to be, I glue them to the back of the bow with a little bit of hot glue. What I didn't say before is that if you want your tails to be a little bit more sturdy, you're going to want to add craft foam underneath the felt. If you think someone's going to see the back of it, I would sandwich it between another piece of felt, but since this was going to be a hair bow and no one was going to see it, it didn't really bother me that it was a different color on the back. And that's it. It's all done. For our third bow, we're going to be making a fun summertime watermelon bow with 4 loops instead of 2. The pattern isn't listed below, but it's basically a thinner version of the regular bow, but crisscrossed with another piece. This pattern does take more product, so you might need a little bit more felt if you were counting on just using one piece, but it doesn't take an excessive amount and it's totally worth it in the end. Just like before, you're going to be adding the felt on top of the craft foam so that it's nice and sturdy, which is really important for this one. I did a glittery green on top of the red. If you're planning on having a watermelon bow, I would highly suggest making sure you have the green glitter craft foam with the red felt on the inside. The glitter craft foam adds a certain texture that the watermelon needs, and the red is like the inside of the watermelon. In order to save time at the end of the project, I also cut out the pattern for the ribbon tails. I always check to make sure the sides of the bows will fit properly together, and then I add some glue and I set them down, making sure that it's set properly by holding it there for a few seconds. I then get the next set of loops and I put them next to each other. This may seem tedious, but it's really important to make sure that they're sitting right for this specific bow. I really wanted this to be a fun, whimsical summer watermelon bow, so instead of a gemstone in the middle, which is what I was originally thinking, I decided why not have a sparkly black watermelon seed. So I used a gemstone as a placeholder to find the correct size. You're going to want to use a marker. I know that this is blurry, but I used the Prismacolor Ultramarine PB44 to add some detail lines on the bow. You want to do both front and back of each loop, as well as making sure that you get lines around the back ribbons just to make a cohesive watermelon look. Using a small dab of hot glue, you're going to want to attach the ribbon underneath the bow and the watermelon seed upon the top. Once that's all done, then your watermelon bow is finished. So the last bow that we're going to be making is the cat bow that I was wearing in the intro section. Just like the other bows, you're going to want to attach your craft foam to felt for some stability. After that, you're going to want to use your pattern. This is actually just the backing pattern that's linked below, but I added some ears where I felt that I wanted to have them positioned. When you're tracing them, if you're tracing on black felt, I actually didn't have it in hand, but you can use some white chalk or white chalk pastels, and that would make it so much easier to cut out than using this marker that I was using. Once that's cut out, you can start working on your first bow, which is the red bow in my case. You can do any colors that you want. It will look best with two opposing colors like red and black. Once you're done with the main bow tracing, you're going to want to do the inside of the ears. They are small pieces, but it's a really important part of this bow. Once all of your pieces are cut out, it's time to assemble your bow. Just like all of the other bows, you're going to want to double check before you glue it that your bow fits properly and sits correctly on the back piece. Once you're satisfied with how that looks, you're going to want to use your glue gun, put a small amount of glue in the middle just like before, and then hold it down so that the glue will set properly. You're also going to want to make sure you put the middle pieces of the ears down before you glue your main bow down, just so that it sits properly. For this piece, I decided to use an oval-shaped gemstone, and that's the final step of the cat bow. Thanks again for coming to my channel. I post new content every Tuesday and Friday, and make sure to tag us in any of your new creations. Can't wait to see you next time!